Next question. Jocko, what's the best way to combine striking and grappling with self-defense in mind? Never heard you mention MMA in this context, only jiu-jitsu with gloves on. Consequently, how the teams adapt MMA-based training to real situations. What's your take on Army's modern Army combatives?
Okay, so a few questions there. How do you best learn to combine striking and grappling? Well, what you do is you combine striking and grappling. That's how you get good at it. You put on the big gloves. We used to call it shoot boxing. That was like a block of training that we doing with guys that were fighting MMA. You put on the relatively big boxing gloves, and then you mix in takedowns with them. So that's great. You should do that. You can do that with kids too. You can do that with kids where you put the big boxing gloves on kids and you have them shoot those double legs all day long. So that when somebody takes a swing at them, they know how to set up, they know the timing, they start to get familiar with it. Because in a way, takedowns are easier in MMA because the person is not solely defending against a takedown. They're defending against punches. They're defending against kicks. So they have to be in a different stance. And so that's the way it works. If you want to train to get combined striking and grappling, you have to combine them together. And if I've only mentioned it with jiu-jitsu with gloves on, man, I've done a ton of MMA sparring with fighters, like a ton, with gloves, with big gloves, shoot boxing, little gloves, everything. And I don't know why I haven't talked about it much, but yeah, I've done a ton of it. And that's how I know, like, taking someone down that's trying to punch you is easier. Now it sucks when you get punched, but it is easier than going against someone that's just trying to wrestle you and has a different stance, a lower stance, and all that. So yeah, that's how you do it. You put big gloves on, and then also you can drill with big gloves on where someone's trying to punch you while they're in your guard, or while you're punching while someone's trying to punch you while they're mounted. You can do that with slaps too, right? Like I mount you and I'm just start slapping you, because then you realize if these were punches, you'd be in serious trouble. So yeah, you can mix those things in and mix them together. Don't get hurt. Be careful. But yeah, you can definitely mix them. So now the next question was, how do the teams adapt MMA-based trainings? Well, the big concepts are the same. The big concepts are exactly the same. You're going to have to close the distance. Like you got someone that's unarmed that you're going to need to get control of. Well, you got to close the distance. You got to take them down. You got to get control of them. You got to submit them or subdue them somehow. That can happen. You got to be able to break away. If somebody grabs you, you got to be able to break away. You got to be able to get up off the ground. There's some large muscle movements that are exactly the same. The striking parts are exactly the same. Someone's, you want to clear someone or you want to punch someone to get them, a little bit disoriented before you get control of them. Yeah, that's what you're doing. That's what boxing is, And so those things there's so much of it that overlaps that the adaptation doesn't have to be barely anything. The adaptation comes in, and we have to do some additional training, some additional concepts that you're moving with gear on, that you have to be able to protect your weapons and your weapon systems. So you want to be aware of where your rifle is, where your pistol is, where your knife is, so that people can't get a hold of it. Weapons retention, so that becomes part of it. The fact that you're working with another person, usually a partner, a shooting buddy, that's going to cover and move for you. So if I go to take a guy down, I got to be aware of where my partner is in case that person that I'm trying to take down gets the upper hand or has a weapon that I didn't see, so that my partner can get a clear shot. So there are tactical things that you do have to add in, but the fundamental concepts, they're so transferable. They're so transferable that it's like, it's like gi and no gi, right? Yeah. It's like gi and no gi. If someone is awesome at gi, they're going to be good at no gi. Yeah. And are there some concepts that you need to learn? Yeah, there's some little things, but there's an overlap is huge. Baseball and softball, right? If someone played college baseball and now they're playing on their local restaurant softball team, they're going to crush it, right? It's not the exact same sport. Longboard surfing versus shortboard surfing, right? If someone's a great surfer on a shortboard, they're going to be decent on a longboard. They might not win the world champ. Like if someone's awesome no gi and they don't really train gi, they're not going to win the worlds, but they'll be damn good. One of the things that I used to, shooting, you got combat shooting, but then you just have competitive target shooting, right? Is competitive target shooting the same as combat shooting? No, there's no explosions, there's no movement, or oftentimes there's competitions where they do have movement too, and the more close it is, the better it's going to be. But if you're a competitive rifle shooter and then you do combat shooting, it is definitely, there's a ton of crossover. One of the things that I used to talk about a lot when people would question, hey, well, MMA fighting it's not good for the SEAL teams because you don't have any gear on. One of the examples that I used a lot was guys that were really into parachuting. And, you know, when you jump in the civilian world, you don't have a rucksack, you don't have a weapon, you don't have night vision goggles, you don't have any of that stuff. And yet, if you have 1,000 jumps as a civilian with a slick rig on, you're going to be infinitely better at the military skydive with the weapon and the rucksack and the night vision and all that. You're going to be infinitely better. It's the same exact thing. Are there some little things that you're going to have to figure out, some details where they don't completely overlap? Yes, absolutely. So there you go. So I guess when you train jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai, if you're in the military, you know, you also have to make sure that you carve out time where you think about the other components, right? About having gear on, what changes when you have your gear on, how to protect your weapons, all that stuff that I talked about working with other people, about the tactical situations that you're in, because there's gonna be some tactical situations that you're in. If you're not thinking straight, you're gonna have a problem. You ever had somebody that goes, well, jiu-jitsu's not good for self-defense because what are you gonna do, pull guard in the street? It's like, no, you're never gonna pull guard in the street. Yeah. Or you shouldn't.
As if pulling guard is like the only thing jiu-jitsu has to offer.
Yeah. But here's the fact is, if someone takes you down in the street and you don't know the guard, what are you gonna do? You're gonna get your face smashed.
Yes, sir, you will.
So you got to cover both angles, but there's so much overlap that if you get good at the fundamentals of MMA, you will be really good at what you need to know with the additional concepts on military tactical type situations. As far as modern Army combatives, it's a great, solid, foundational program and created by some great martial artists that were in ground floor. I think Matt Larson, he's the guy that kind of is the grandfather of, or father of, I don't know if he's old enough to be grandfather. He might even be my age, so I don't know. Sorry, Matt. But yeah, I mean, he put together a great system. And it's a great fundamental system. Could someone pick apart some aspect of the Army? Sure, you could. Yeah. But you look at the whole system, it's a great, solid system to get people started out on. So props.
Yeah. I mean, any system you can kind of say that for,
right?
You
can
pick it apart.
You can. And that's why it's important. That's why I said foundational system, right? Because it's a great foundational system. Because once you learn it, you don't learn the modern Army combatives, and then say, okay, no good now. Don't need to train anymore. That's not the right answer. The right answer is you have a good foundation. Now keep building on it. Yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I remember I used to train for MMA and pancration. Remember that? Yeah. I trained for a while, and the sparring element of it, there's three phases, because there's, even if you're training MMA, you're going to train striking one day, and maybe even specialized striking stuff one day, and then wrestling and grappling and jiu-jitsu one day. But you have MMA sparring, which is a full MMA fight with big gloves, and may or may not have shin pads or whatever, but it's essentially an MMA fight, and that is 100% incorporating grappling and striking and takedown. It's everything, So it's kind of like one of those things where you get to train to fill in those gaps between okay, one moment I'm striking, one moment I'm grappling, and the strikes while you're grappling.
And there's some inconsistencies, because if you were striking with big gloves, then you can't grab someone's hands the way you would with the little gloves on. But like you said, what it does is it fills in the gaps. So absolutely.
And that's what that training is for. So like, if you like to play guard, or you have a slick game from guard or whatever, if you train like an MMA training or training with strikes and stuff like that, it'll really expose where you're in danger in a real fight, because that guy's gonna punch you in the face down there
a lot.
So it's a faster paced thing, so it just builds your awareness of it. So I remember that even when I just go back to regular jiu-jitsu or whatever, it's like, man, I feel super aware of it, like almost like you're anticipating, okay, I can get punched from here.
I actually think about that all the time. I always think, like, I'll be rolling with Taylor, and because Taylor isn't like Andy, I don't think about it as much because Andy's more of a jiu-jitsu fighter, but Taylor, he's an MMA fighter, and so if he's on top of me for a round, like he's in my top half guard, and when we get done, I'll be like, I'm glad that wasn't MMA, because you would have pulverized my head. And now, do some gaps open up when people start punching? Yeah, they do. Is there an opportunity? Yeah, there is. But you're going to take some shots.
Yeah, well, and then at the end of the day, all that is part of it. You know, so it's like if you're okay, so here's the scenario I'd find myself in where the guy I'm going against is a way better striker than me, like way more experienced and just better. Yep. But my jiu-jitsu is way better. So it's like, dang, I gotta get this guy to the ground. So if we don't, when we train this, I get that practice to be, okay, I'm gonna use this guy's striking to like get around him or something like that. Yeah. I'm not gonna like stand here and try to strike with him and get beat up this training session.
But you do have to stand there long enough to get them to think, to get them to forget about you taking them down.
Yeah, fully.
That's what I always, and you see that in MMA fights too.
Right.
You can't just go in there and start shooting on the guy because they know that you're going to try and take him down because they know their ground game is worse, and so they're going to defend that takedown.
Exactly right. And
you got to get them thinking about that knockout that they're going to knock you out. And sometimes it takes 2 minutes, sometimes it takes 3 minutes, sometimes it takes a round and a half before you take your first shot.
Yeah, and really, to be real with you, that's what this training is for. So in the beginning, you might not even be able to take that guy down because you're like, oh, I know this guy. He's that jiu-jitsu guy. Now he's come training with us. He's gonna try to take me down, and he's just gonna beat you up from the outside.
And actually, what he'll do is he won't even beat you up. He won't even commit to his punches because he doesn't want to overstep and give you any advantage on your takedown.
Yeah.
So he'll just stand, like you said, stand on the outside, start attacking you in the face.
And I say that because that's kind of what happened to me. Okay. So I'd go in, and then of course they just stay away or sprawl because they know it's coming, kind of thing. And then as you reset from the sprawl, he'd be 1, 2, kind of on the separation.
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't know that kind of stuff yet.
Yeah, no big deal. 1, 2, crack.
Just all around, though.
I'm saying it's funny because when you say, you take a 1, 2 as you're getting away, but that punches sting, boy. They sting, boy.
Right, yeah. But after a while, that's what I'm saying. You get that training. Just through the training, you're like, okay, I know how this is now. I can't. It's not like jiu-jitsu where I can kind of, just go and lock up, and if I don't get the takedown, I'll pull guard kind of thing. These guys, they're not trying to grapple with you. They're trying to stand back up. Yep. You get that training, So when you wind up, being able to take them down and all this stuff, you can, you'll have just way more of an advantage because you're aware of all these different elements that you might not get in just jiu-jitsu class. You might get them, but you probably don't. You get a guy who always wants to stand up. Probably in jiu-jitsu class, try roll with a guy in jiu-jitsu, just straight jiu-jitsu, who only wants to stand up, who just would rather die than be in the bottom. He'll stand. It's so annoying.
It's annoying. It's challenging. It's something you need to learn to contend with because there are tactics that you can use as the guy on top to keep them down there.
Exactly right. And you get MMA guys, especially if you're better than them at the jiu-jitsu element of it, that's what they're going to do. So that's the training you're going to get.
Yep. Check.